Hi, when I'm asked what I do for a living, my answer is always the same. I'm a teacher. I'm not a professor. I'm not an academic. I'm not an expert in anything related to finance. I'm a dabbler. I'm a dabbler in corporate finance. I'm a dabbler in valuation. I'm a dabbler in portfolio management. Three topics that I've been lucky enough to teach for most of the last 3 decades at the Stern School of Business at New York University. About 20 years ago, though, I decided that if I was going to teach a class, I'd much rather teach a bigger class rather than a smaller one, more people rather than fewer, and it is in that pursuit that I started putting my classes online. Now, 20 years ago, that was a lot of work. I had to set up a camcorder in the back of the room, which would record the classes on videos, which I would convert at great effort into online videos of extraordinarily poor quality, perhaps passable audio quality. But I started doing that in the 1990s. And I continued to do that through much of the last decade, through 2006, 2007, when I realized that putting your classes online was not the same as teaching your classes online. And here's why. My typical class is 80 minutes and there are 26 sessions. 80 minutes on watching a video, 80 minutes online is like poking your eyes with needles. It's difficult, almost impossible to do. So I started thinking about what the challenges were with online teaching. And to understand what those challenges were, I stepped back and thought about what I hope to accomplish every time I step into a classroom. When I step into a classroom, here's what I hope students get out of my classes. I hope they get the tools, the techniques, the models, the content of the class. That's of course important. But more critically, I want them to learn how to think, to learn how to learn. In other words, be able to understand the first principles of corporate finance or valuations sufficiently and be confident enough that they can devise their own tools. And in the classroom, I have lots of techniques, tools that I can use to get people to do that. I can keep tabs on them in the classroom. I can ask them questions. They can ask me questions. They can talk to each other. We underestimate how much interaction plays a role in learning and how much that personal connection helps. So I started thinking about if I were trying to do this online, what would I need to do? The first thing I realized was I could not take 80-minute lectures and put them online. So here's what I tried to do. I took each of my 80-minute classes and tried to see if I could fit it into a 10-minute slot, and was both humbling and revealing. Revealing because it wasn't that difficult to do. Humbling because it showed me how much buffer I've built into my classrooms. How much time I spent rambling and riffing. Don't get me wrong, I love rambling and riffing. I think it's part of teaching, but we do fill up classes with a lot of stuff we don't need. So what I did first was I took my classes and made them into shorter online classes. So I have created online versions of my corporate finance, valuation, and investment philosophies classes that you can see, that you can click onto and follow if you want. But these classes come with limitations. Let's take the investment philosophies class. It's been taken by about 60,000 people, so that's a lot of people in iTunes U. But with that many people, here's the problem you have. It's entirely online. There is no physical interaction. There's no live connection between me and the people taking the class and between the students. Second, there are no exams and quizzes. There's no discipline built into the class, which means that it's easy to start taking a class and never finish the class, a very common problem with online classes. And third, at the end of the class, you have nothing to show for it. Of course, the flip side of this is in return for all of this, the class costs nothing. It's a free class. And so to me, the quid quo pro seemed okay, that the material was there for people to learn if they wanted. And because I couldn't give them the bells and whistles, what made this into a complete class, there were no certificates. About a year ago, NYU came to me and asked me whether I would be willing to do an online certificate class. My first reaction was, of course not. I'm not going to do it for you. And here's why. One is, it is a university, and universities across the world always seem to have a problem. No matter how much revenue they collect in tuitions, their costs always seem to be high. They always run at a deficit. So if NYU offered my certificate, it was definitely not going to be free. In fact, it was going to be pretty pricey. The second thing I was worried about is if in return for having an online certificate class, they would demand that I pull all my free classes offline. So I negotiated with them. I said, look, if you're willing to leave the online classes untouched and free, I'm willing to do a certificate class. They hemmed and they hawed, but they finally agreed. So we taught the first online valuation certificate class in the spring of 2017. There were 66 people who took the class, and here's what made this class different from my free classes. The first was built around 28 video sessions, very similar to my free online class. But these videos were shot in a studio rather than at a table with a friend helping me out. So it was shot in a studio, and there are advantages to shooting a video in a studio. The quality is much better. They were edited by professionals who were able to animate the slides, do things that I could not do on my own. So the videos are in a sense a much better quality than the videos you'd have seen online in my online free classes. But that's only a small piece of the puzzle. So those are the 28 sessions. Those are still not live sessions. Every 2 weeks, though, during the Valuation Certificate class, I spend an hour. I know it's not a whole lot of time, running a live WebEx where everybody in the class was able to ask me questions, not just about the sessions, but about news, about financials, news stories, about life in general. An hour every 2 weeks, some live interaction. I wish we could have had more, but no, an hour every 2 weeks is not bad. Every 6 or 8 sessions, we had a quiz which I graded, and over the course of the semester, people through the online class went through almost the exact torture that I put my regular classes through. Quizzes and exams. And to top it off, everybody in the online certificate class was able to pick a company to value that midway through the semester I was able to give feedback on without a grade. At the end of the semester, I graded and became part of the final grading. There were 66 people who started the class. 39 people completed the class. Not bad. I mean, given the fact it was a pilot and that people had other things to do. And among the 39, 13 did so well that essentially I had to figure out a way to show that they did much better than just passing. So we created the certificate with honors. The pilot had its bumps, but in my view, it did pretty well. This fall, we're going to offer the valuation certificate in its full form. It's going to have several hundred people, but I'm going to stick with the same script. We're going to have the sessions, which have already been recorded, but every 2 weeks we're going to have a WebEx session. You're going to hear from me probably every week, at least 2 or 3 times, just to make sure we're on track, that everything's going okay. You'll have exams and quizzes, just like the pilot, which will be graded by me, and which will be graded and recorded. But you'll also have to pick a company to value, any company you want, and over the course of the semester value the company. So there will be a time constraint because the class will start in early September, end in December. But if you keep on schedule, and there's some buffer built in, where if you have a busy week, you can catch up the following week. By the middle of December, you will have the entire certificate class done. Of course, there is a price you will pay, and I wish I could bring the price down, but as I said, this is the pact you make with the devil, if I can call NYU the devil. They've created a certificate class. They will give you the certificate, but in return, they will charge you a price. And if you can't afford the price, please take the the free version of the class, because it has pretty much the same content. But if you can afford the price and you decide to join the certificate, I'd love to see you there. Incidentally, this is just the first of 2 certificates that I will be teaching for NYU. In the spring of 2018, I will be teaching an online corporate finance certificate class. It'll be a pilot class, just like the valuation class, was just to make sure we iron out the kinks. But that too will become a full-time certificate class. I know that it's a poor substitute for actually being in a physical classroom, and I wish I could make my physical classroom 50,000 people, a capacity of 50,000, but I can't do that. So this is about as far as I can go in terms of pushing my class online. But I am learning things about online teaching each time I do this, and I hope to get better at it over time. So if you're interested and you want to join in, please do. And if you can't afford the price, please take the online class. As I said, it has much of the same content. But one way or the other, I hope to see you someplace. Thank you very much for listening.